All right, Brooke, thank you very much for joining us for an interview for bmxultra.com, and really a big fan. I've been watching your grow ever since the Claiborne years. I think you had the
Yeah.
insane Brooke Crain frame.
Yep.
So it must be pretty, I don't know what the word would be, exciting, and I don't know, just to look back over your career and see what you've done and what you've managed to achieve. What would be the highlight of your career?
Um, Honestly, the highlight of my career, I guess, would just be all the people that are in my life now. That's the biggest thing, and just the different opportunities that sport gave me. I can't. It was never like a race or a moment. It was more so just the people the sport brought into my life and the places I was able to go. Um, that would be something I would have never been able to dream about had I not been able to do it through the sport. So I'm extremely grateful for everything that my bike gave me and the sport of BMX gave me. And that's kind of where my position is now is I'm super passionate about wanting to give back to that community that gave me so much.
So the whole Mongoose USA BMX Foundation role, was that filled by Justin Posey previously?
No, not necessarily. Not the position I'm in.
Okay.
Posey's kind of always worked with the foundation and Mongoose as well. And as it is right now, Posey's been a very big help for me, just learning this position. And he obviously knows, the background of the foundation, and he's been there from the start. So his role was a little bit different than what I'm doing, but still, he's very much still involved, and he helps us anytime that he can or that we need it.
So what does your role entail then?
Uh, Good question. Um, my official job title is the USABMX Foundation Director of Operations. So basically, I have a team of 3 of us that are working with the foundation. We have Alec Bob and then this girl named Bailey Benton. She's new to the sport of BMX, but she's been awesome. And we're all 3 working together as far as handling the 3 different programs that the foundation offers between track modeling, the Read to Ride program, and then the STEM program. So we kind of all work together. We have different job specifics that, I'm supposed to do or Bailey's supposed to do, but we kind of don't put that on each other. We just kind of work together as a team, just because we're all 3 learning. So that's been extremely helpful. We have our first track modeling program next week in Tucson, Arizona, which we're all a little bit nervous about because it's our first time that we'll be doing it. But we're kind of starting at scratch and hoping to grow it, even bigger than they have in the past, and just really, get into schools and get kids introduced into the sport of BMX. And the idea, obviously, behind the whole thing is to share our passion and how great the sport of BMX is, and get it introduced into kids in school that may not have never heard of it. And we have different programs that we can help, whether they don't have the financial backing to help them through it. That's kind of where we come in and give these kids the opportunity that they might not have. And so the idea is just as many memberships as we can get is bring kids into the sport.
Can you explain the track modeling?
Yeah, so I'm actually not 100% familiar. I haven't done one yet, but from what I understand, it's about a 5-day curriculum, I guess, that we give to the teachers. And they go over one of the days they get to go to the BMX track and they get to, analyze it. And they talk about in the curriculum, like, the different, how much dirt it takes to build a track, and, just all the different science, I guess, behind it. If you would call it science, I'm not sure what you would call it, but and then ultimately the end goal is we supply like plywood and dirt, and these kids get into groups and they get to design a track of their own, and they get creative. They're allowed to pretty much use whatever. One of the guys was telling us that last year they did vinegar and water, and they created a slurry, and they like sprayed the dirt, on and slurry. And one of the photos I've seen, the kids took milk cartons, or not milk cartons, like the little paper things that milk would come in,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and they painted one blue and one pink, and they made like a boys and girls like outhouse restroom. So these kids get super creative, and we have judges that come in, and ideally, like we would like to use people, whether it's the mayor of that city or the principal, come in and judge the kids' um, what they built, and so it's fun for the kids, and we provide trophies and stuff like that, and yeah, the idea is just kind of get them to understand the sport of BMX and how BMX tracks work and how many of them are located around. And right now it's kind of tricky with COVID. Just some schools don't allow kids to get on school buses to actually go to the track. So like this one in Tucson, we're bringing a pump track to their school because they're not allowed to actually get in a bus and go to the track. So that one will be a little bit different, but we try to make it work as best we can given the circumstances.
So what were the other ones? Read to Ride. What's that about?
Read to Ride. So yeah, basically I want to say they did it over like a break. So say they had a 3 week long Christmas break. So during that 3 weeks, whoever read the most, and it's kind of like an honor system, whoever read the most out of their classroom, they won a bike.
Oh, right.
And so yeah, that was pretty cool. And then the STEM program is the big one, and it's using math and science. And with the STEM program, it's provided when the school purchases it. 5 bikes come with it, 5 Mongoose bikes, 5 helmets, a pump, tires, and it goes over pretty much everything. But it's using math and science, but incorporating BMX. And so, yeah, it's super cool. I'm excited. I'm not, I'm learning about it now, but I'm excited to actually get hands-on with these programs and really get a better understanding of them. Sorry, my dog is being a pain. So yeah, they all very, very cool. Seriously, get down. Oh, sorry. So I'm excited to see what they're all about, and hopefully we can continue to grow them. I had
So
a little bit of a mental breakdown yesterday because I've never had a job, so other than my bike, and I was just feeling super overwhelmed, and I'm not somebody that's very smart with computers, and fortunately I have Rach who helps me chance that she can. Um, but yeah, it's been a little bit overwhelming just trying to learn, and I want to obviously be good at what I'm doing, and I know that I have to start at ground zero and get there, but it's a lot.
so obviously, you're pretty prepared for it. You've done coaching before. You've spoken to kids, and you've talked a lot about BMX over your lifespan. So it should come pretty naturally to you, shouldn't it?
Yeah, it's just like the math and science part of it, I guess. And like, with this new position, I'm kind of like air traffic control as far as like different orders coming in and invoices and stuff like that. And that's all very new to me. I'm not gonna lie, all of my invoices in my career, Rachel always did them for me because I just right over my head. So I'm learning.
Does it mean a lot of travel for you?
Yeah. A lot of going back and forth to Tulsa because obviously that's where our new headquarters are. And who knows? Eventually, we might end up moving there. I'm not sure yet, but right now, I don't mind going back and forth. I'm used to traveling, my whole career. So, yeah, right now it's a little bit of travel back and forth to Tulsa, and then obviously, if we don't go to every track modeling. Like we don't necessarily have to be there because we send the teachers the curriculum, and then we like to do like a Zoom with the kids and just kind of bring in a pro, whether that's Alec or myself, or we bring in somebody on the Mongoose team to talk to the kids. So that can all be done over Zoom. There's just a few of them, like this Tucson one. It was promised that we would actually physically be there, so we're gonna make that happen. So yeah, and then obviously my goal, once everything is kind of settled with the job and where we need to be, I would like to start go to the nationals and do some clinics at the nationals, and that's kind of my deal with Mongoose is just help, especially Peyton, like kind of mentor her and be there for her as far as her sponsorship stuff and helping her with that throughout her career, but also just being there for the team, anything they need at the race, and then obviously to do a clinic while I'm at the race, prior to the event starting. So that's the goal. I'm hoping Nashville will be the first one that I'm able to go to. Well, actually, Tulsa will be the first one. It's like 2 weekends before Nashville, but that'll be in May. So yeah, it's just trying to get everything settled right now.
Sounds very consuming. It sounds like the foundation stuff happens during the week, and then the Mongoose stuff happens on the weekend. So, will you get much time to yourself?
It's just not really. I haven't found much lately, but it's been good. Rachel's in the fire academy right now, and that's 4 days a week, all in the evenings, and then all day on Saturdays. So if she's gone, I'm typically here by myself anyways, and so it's just been good for me to be busy. And that was one thing I was super concerned about with retiring, is I didn't want to fall into this depression that I know a lot of athletes fall into. So I guess keeping myself busy, and I just try not to be hard on myself. I want to be really good at this job, and I know right now I'm not, just because I'm trying to learn it all, but and then obviously fulfill my obligations with Mongoose, and those guys are super. I actually just got off the phone with Kevin right before our call, and he's just very encouraging and just telling me, how good of a job I'm doing, and not to worry about, because I feel like, I'm like, social media wise, I have not been good about posting, and I haven't even got my bikes put together yet. I don't have all the parts, and so it's just been a lot right now. But he's like, just take a deep breath, you're fine.
Have you had a chance to ride a bike since you retired?
Uh, I actually went to a Tangent Pro-Am. So I started a CrossFit class, and I got rhabdo, my very first class, which I don't know if you're familiar with rhabdo. It's basically where you break down your muscles so bad that it releases a toxin into your bloodstream, and it shuts down your kidneys.
Oh God.
So my very first class this happened, and it mainly the cause is from like intense exercise plus being dehydrated. And so I ended up hospitalized with that. Right, like literally very first class this happened. So I took 2 weeks off exercising after I was released out of the hospital until my CK levels had gone back to normal. And so this happened to be my first workout, was a Saturday, which happened to fall on a Tangent Pro-Am that was happening an hour and 15 minutes away. So that morning, I went on a mountain bike ride with, he's a family friend. He was my dad's best friend growing up. And it was 15 miles. 9 of it was uphill. And so I went in deep. I was dying. And after I got done, I was like, oh, well, I plan to go to the Tangent Pro-Am to watch. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. I haven't built my bike yet from Grands. I'm going to race. Thinking the Tangent Pro-Ams are typically 2 rounds and 1 final. So I'm like, I could, get out and do a first straight and hopefully make the final, just by kind of cruising. Because typically no pros really show up lately. It's just been amateurs. And then I'll have 1 hard lap in the final. Well, no, I get there 5 minutes before racing starts, no practice, straight off a mountain bike. Haven't ridden my bike since Grands. And they're like, it's total points. You have 3 main events. And I'm like, no. So I get out and I'm winning. First main event. I get to the second corner, and I kid you not, I could not pedal. Like my legs seized up. I'm like, I can't pedal. I got passed by 4 girls, and they're all like 15, 16-year-olds. Half of them, well, not half of them, but 2 of the girls I train. So they're beating me, which they should be beating me now that they're doing their program, if they're doing the work, But now I'm like, this was a bad idea. Like, I should not have done this. I contemplated not going up for second round. And I ended up going up. I got 4th overall. I got smoked by these chicks. And I was like, this should be an indicator. It's been 2 months since Grands. And in 2 months, I'm getting smoked by these 15, 16-year-old girls. So that means you need to stay training, because it goes away quick. Not to take away from them, because, those top girls, they're extremely fast. But it was a bad call. It was fun, though. And I haven't ridden my bike since. So
yeah, it must be almost overwhelming to have that kind of break and not find some form at least. It's the way of the sport, though, isn't it? There's so much involved. There's a little bit of muscle memory, obviously. You probably got a good gait, and then for a few pedals, and then it kind of faded. I think COVID had that same effect on me. I got kind of
Yeah.
lazy, and the difference between racing 2 years ago to racing now, I think I can manage two straights, and then I just hang on for dear
Yeah.
life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's you definitely got to stay on it if you want to, stay on top of your game. It's not something you take lightly, I guess. I couldn't believe how much had changed in just a few. I mean, it was essentially like 6 weeks or something since Grands. So it's all right.
So what jobs will you be doing for Mongoose? You did talk a little bit about coaching and mentoring. Is there specific jobs?
No, I mean that's kind of it. Just being kind of an ambassador for the brand, I guess, as you would. I just trying to be there for the athletes as well as do some clinics when I can, and just spread the word. And with the foundation stuff, the foundation and Mongoose are partnered, so like all of our kids that are coming in, we have them on Mongoose bikes, we get them a Mongoose helmet. So just really embracing the brand. And um, I adore everybody that I've met on Mongoose. They're filled with the best humans on earth. And it's, for the past few years, when I didn't have a pit at nationals at Haro, they would always welcome me with open arms. And that was kind of how that relationship started growing. And so they've just always been very big supporters of mine, and I'm big fans of theirs. And so it just kind of fell into place and worked out.
So the brand's been around forever, and you're kind of newer to the sport. How long have you been racing BMX? Must be over 20 years now.
22 years.
22 years. So when you first started, there probably wasn't a lot of Mongoose involvement in the sport. So how do people look at the brand now, and how do you think being an ambassador you could change or improve that?
Yeah, I think that it's funny when you talk about, if I'm wearing, for instance, I was wearing a Mongoose shirt to the gym the other day, and just a random guy at the gym was like, "Wow, I haven't heard of that brand in a while."
Mm.
And so that's kind of cool because it's like everybody knows of Mongoose, but it kind of went away, you would say,
Yeah.
for a while. So yeah, I just think that's the idea, is just reintroducing it. And it's such a legendary brand that's been around forever. I mean, since the beginning.
Mm.
Um, and so yeah, just really getting word out there that we're back, I guess you could say.
I guess it's not much different to Haro. That was around for a long
Yeah,
time as well. Um,
absolutely.
and and there's quite a few other brands, but there's a whole lot of new brands out there. It must be hard for them to be able to compete against that kind of brand recognition that you spoke about. There'll be a lot of brands that you'd go into a gym and no one would recognize the logo or have any understanding of the brand at all.
Yeah, but I think that's the cool part, especially for me. Like I've been super fortunate to now represent two legendary brands that, like,
Mm.
Haro was such a legendary brand as well, and or is, and that's always been super. I've taken passion in that, and I've been honored to be able to be like, oh yeah, I ride for Haro bikes, or now I ride for Mongoose bicycles, and it's like that's awesome. And I've always said, and some people might hate me for saying this, but I've always said it. I think BMX needs to be like motocross. You have 5 brands, and those are the only bikes that are distributed are those 5 different brands. And both Mongoose and Haro would be on that list. And I just think in order to continue to grow the sport, these mom and pop bikes, because Johnny couldn't get a sponsorship at 6 novice, dad goes out and builds a bike, and now this is a bike brand, and it's like that, to me, that kills the sport. So I don't know, people might hate me for saying that, but that's just my take on it.
Well, I'm sure you've seen that a lot. I've noticed a whole bunch of brands that might last maybe 3 or 4 years, and that's exactly what they did. They sort of built it up by giving away lots of product, and obviously it was not a very sustainable model, and then they just folded. And in that
Yeah.
time, all the bigger brands sort of lost out of the sales, so they kind of lost
The
out.
bigger brands, the ones that have been around forever, they suffer from that because you buy, so-and-so bike for however much money when, a Mongoose costs this much. And it just, there's a reason for that. You know what I mean? It's like, there's a reason you're paying more for what you're getting. I don't know. That's just my take on it.
At Ultra, we did do a product review on the Tidal Elite just a few weeks ago, and it was such a nice bike. I guess the frame was a feature. The parts I wasn't that keen on. If I was to buy one, I'd probably build it up from scratch, just have a frame and custom build it. But it's such a nice frame for the price. I couldn't believe that, a frame that price, someone like Peanut could go out and make a podium at a World Cup on it.
Right.
It's crazy to believe.
Absolutely. Or yeah, I even rode it at the Olympics,
Yeah.
Pretty awesome.
So I've got a whole bunch of other questions for you just about your career and retirement, but I think I'll start with retirement. What does retirement actually mean to you?
No more sprints. No, I just, and you always have your life planned out, right? And in my life being planned out, I always planned to retire in 2020. That was when my contracts had ended. And I knew that I was ready for the next steps in life. Like, I didn't know what those next steps were, but I've always been very passionate about wanting to be a mom. Like, that's been like a dream of mine since I was a little kid. I've always been fascinated with people being pregnant, and I just like could not wait for that moment. And I'm still like, constantly pushing Rach, like, okay, when can I have the go ahead? But so that was always the idea, and then COVID hit and everything was just so unexpected in life. And I was performing, my last race before COVID, I had gotten third at the national champs behind Elise and Felicia. And it was like, I was up there with them, and nothing different had changed. And then COVID hit, and then I lost my dad. And that shifted everything in my life. And it wasn't, I don't want to say it's his fault that I retired or stopped performing to where I was, but a big shift in my life happened. And even prior to that, I started going through these really dark times. It was about April of 2020, and I was super suicidal. I would get these random forms of aggression, of being sad, and they would come out of nowhere. And I've always been a really happy person, and I didn't know what was going on with me, and I was terrified. And of course, when you don't know what's going on with you, you start Googling everything, and everything kind of led to thinking I had CTE. I've had plenty of concussions, and it was just like, okay, this is the beginning. This is the start of why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, because nothing made sense. And this is prior to losing my dad. And I went and I actually got an MRI done on my brain, and it showed that my brain had stopped producing serotonin from my concussions. So it started making sense. And I got put on a medication, an SSRI, which is an antidepressant. And it literally changed my life. It completely saved me. And I think it's the only way I was able to cope with the things that happened with my dad, because this is in April. And looking back on it now, my dad was so very interested when I was telling him about this stuff. And looking back now, I'm sure because he was feeling the same way, right? And now I look back and I know history on my family so I lost my dad to suicide, and we start, kind of putting things together. Well, I've lost somebody in my family on both sides, all the way up to a great great grandparent from suicide in every single generation.
Wow.
On both mom and dad's side. So it's like, that obviously isn't a coincidence. So now I had that on top of, hitting my head multiple times. And, when we're a kid in BMX, it's like concussions weren't taken seriously like they are now. So I remember so many times it was like, oh, you're fine. You're passed out on the track, but you're good. So who knows how many unrecorded ones I had, and so that it just shifted everything. And I got put on an antidepressant, and then I also got put on an anxiety medication, which was, I was told it wasn't like a Xanax or anything like that. It was something that was not going to be addictive. I could take it every day, my doctor told me. Well, I took this medication every day from April to January, really. Well, it was about April to March. And at the Grands was my first race back, which was obviously an emotional one to begin with. My dad, the one race he went to every year was the Grands. So it was a lot. But then I've never been a good practicer. I've always been somebody that will just show up first round. And like, if I haven't jumped a jump in practice because I was scared of it, I'll just do it first round. There's been so many supercross races I wouldn't go down the hill in practice, and I would just go and do it first round. Because if I don't think about it, I would do it. But if I thought about it, I'd end up crashing in practice. So I've always been very good at having that switch, come race time, switch it on and go. Well, at the Grands, no matter what I did, I could not find that switch. It was almost like I was just numb. Like, I didn't care how I did. I didn't care that I was getting last. Like, it just wasn't me. Well, then, I was working with Tony Hoffman and we worked together for 12 years. And he's kind of been out of the scene for a while. And, but he's like an older brother to me. And we can talk about anything, and he's helped me through so much. And, I'm telling him about all these things that I'm feeling, and everybody's answer is just like, well, it's first race without dad. Like, it's a, high emotions, like, it's okay, like, brush it off. And so I knew that wasn't how I wanted to end my career. I'm like, let's go for one more year. So I renegotiated with Haro, one more year. And then it was like I was using training as my outlet. And honestly, in 2021, I trained harder than I ever did my entire career. And I just kept going backwards.
Oh God.
I would times, like my 30-foot times outside of the house, like, they just kept going backwards. And it was like, what the hell am I doing? I'm working harder than I've ever worked, and nothing is working. And that's when Tony was like, let's reach out to Ariel. Maybe we need something new. Like, we've been doing the same thing because it's worked for so many years. Let's try something new. And Ariel's always been, we've always been great friends, and I trust her. And she was like, I would love to. And we started doing different stuff, and we started seeing small improvements. Well, one of the big things was she went to a close friend who is a doctor and who is big into sports. And the doctor was like, you need to get her off of that that medication, not the antidepressant, but the anxiety one, because it was basically, it has a sedative in it, and so which lasts for 9 hours. So I was taking that every single night for over a year, or around a year. So that was why I was like, no matter what I did, I could not wake my body up. Like, I was just like, and so I got off of that, which took quite a bit of time to get out of my system completely, and just kept chipping away. And she was really good at just reminding me, because she went through retirement and all that. And just so every race, it was like, let's just have fun. Like, we've done the work. This is it, like, and I started actually spent some time with the Reeds, with Chad and Ellie at the Rockford National. And Chad was telling me, like, I was just, it was Father's Day that weekend. So I was just, in my head and just upset. And he's like, you see people like with their headphones in, and, they're jamming out and they're getting hyped. And he's like, I stopped doing that towards the end of my career. He's like, I started embracing, the wind in the trees, the smell of the track, all the different noises around you. And that helped me so much towards the end of my career, because I was just like, I was embracing all those little things that we take for granted, and, seeing the dad at the finish line who's in tears hugging their 5-year-old. It's like, that's BMX. That's the stuff that I'm going to remember and want to remember, not what place I got. Like, nobody's going to remember what place you got at a certain race. They're going to remember the impact you made on them and how you treated them. And that's kind of how I was always taught by my parents my entire career. When I was a little kid, I wasn't allowed to cry until I got in the car, because you're not going to show people that you're a poor sport. You know what I mean? And I never won anything my entire career. You know, I won a world title when I was 16 as an amateur, you know. But as far as that, like, I was never a champion at anything. And for so many years, I didn't understand why that could never be me. You know, like, I tried so hard and I always got second to Elise, always. And it was hard for many years until I realized that wasn't my role in the sport. Her role in the sport is to be the greatest to have ever done it, in my opinion. She's amazing, right? But my role is different. My role is to be, you know, somebody that these kids can look at if they're gay and they're struggling. The person that I needed when I was a kid, that to know that I'm not up, I'm okay, you know, and that's my role. My role is to talk about mental health and make it aware to these pros that it's okay if you need help. It's okay, you know, if you feel shitty this day and, you know, you hit your head and you have all these, you know, I talk to Tori and Nighthawk about all the time. He suffers from anxiety majorly, but he's also hit his head so many times, you know, and it's like that stuff it happens to us and it doesn't need to go unnoticed. We need to talk about it so that people feel okay. And it's like once I realized that was my purpose, it shifted everything for me. I started enjoying this last year racing. I sucked. I'm not going to lie. I worked my ass off and I sucked, but I had the most fun I've ever had. And that's what I can look back and be proud of. You know, it's just, it may not have, I would have ideally liked to go out, you know, on the podium or winning. But when I made the final at the Grands, I've never jumped and celebrated at the finish line ever. And it was like the greatest feeling. I jumped at the finish line. I'm bawling. My family's there. You know, my supporters, Tony was there. Ariel was there. Everybody in my corner that's been in my corner that knows, you know, I had Rachel, my mom, Nick, they all ran up to me. And it was like, they all knew what I had been through that past year and how much, I get emotional thinking about it, but how much that meant to me, you know, to get there. And so I couldn't have gone out on better terms, in my opinion. And I'm really proud of that. And so, and now I'm proud, like, I didn't realize that I would be offered this job at USABMX until January, really. And so, you know, the Mongoose thing had been set in stone for quite a while, but the USABMX job was fresh and new. And so now it's like I'm in the position, it might be a lot right now, but it's everything I want to do and everything I'm passionate about. And so I'm really excited. Sorry, I feel like that was a really long answer for
No, it was great. I'm
question.
sure there's lots of, you know, there's no magazines and you don't do that many interviews, so it's probably good insight to you and a good way for people to find out more about you and that time for you. And I
Yeah.
think it's great. And if you do need to stop for a break or anything, just say
No,
so.
no, no, you're good. I cry all the time. Ask Rachel. It's normal.
um, sorry, I have to think again now. I was going to ask you a question about Mongoose. So your job with Mongoose is an ambassador and mentor. So it's obviously not just for the riders at Mongoose. If anyone does feel like they want to come up and talk to you, it's just like at any other race meeting. They can come up and talk to you, get an autograph, get a photo, and
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the beauty of just sticking around in the sport, you know, and I know that it's going to get to that point where there's this new generation that has no idea who I am, you know, and I see that all the time, like with Kim Hayashi. I'm like, you know, she'll walk around and I'm like, do people not realize who that is? Like, she is a legend, you know, and but I know it's going to get to that point, and so that's why I'm just excited to stay in the sport. And you know, it may not be because somebody wants an autograph or a photo, but just somebody that knows that they can come to me and I will take the time to talk to them and help them the best that I can. You know, and that's what I feel like I should be doing, and that's what I want to be doing.
actually, you just reminded me a small story about Kim Hayashi. I was at a national in Connecticut, and I was parked next to her. I was just sitting in my car because obviously being from Australia, I didn't have a team tent to sit under. So I was sitting in the car in between motos, and she was in the next car, and she came over and she was having, I think it was like a sneezing attack or something. And I said, "Are you okay?" And she goes, "I'm allergic I've got allergies to dust or something. And I thought, for a BMXer, that's the most unusual thing.
Yeah.
Um, is there something like that about you that people don't know? Did you have any dust allergies or?
No, I didn't have any dust allergies. I'm a weirdo when it comes to traveling. So if it was an international travel, anybody on my team will tell you this. I would take a full set of sheets and 2 pillows, at least, sometimes 3. Now, if it's like through the U.S., I always have a pillow with me. I have to take my pillow and wherever I go. But yeah, I think that's kind of like the only weird thing. The sheets thing got everybody. They're like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "I will take another bag to make sure I have my sheets."
Actually, I have to join you on the pillow thing. I take my own pillow everywhere as well.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things you just gotta have, I think.
I think we touched on this. What's your most memorable moment as a pro racer?
Um, there's a lot. I always say like my favorite race though was always the Rio Olympics. It was one of those days where I just having so much fun, and you felt like, you know, I had a really shitty lead up to Rio, but it was all worth it because when I got there, like I was in the best mind space that I could have been in, and getting fourth obviously sucked. Like it's like I don't know. Look at my dog. I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Um, yeah, getting fourth was a bit of a sting, but still, it was like whenever I think about what the best race I ever had was, it was Rio. So,
And what was it that made Rio stand out for you? You did say that everything sort of fell into place, but you also importantly said you had a lot of fun that day. And I kind of wonder sometimes, so many years into a pro career, when does the fun stop and just become a job?
yeah, and that's kind of started for me towards the end of my career. I was never one that liked to train. I always hated training. It was like I dreaded it every day. You know, kind of a lazy person to begin with. So that was, but it once it became where I knew that I had to train if I wanted to be decent. You know, but yeah, I just think with Rio, I just all the work I had done leading up, like I genuinely felt like it was paying off. Like I was enjoying it. I wasn't really nervous, which was a whole different experience than what I felt in London. But it was like I worked 4 years to feel that way at the race. And yeah, there are times in the sport when you feel like it is a job, but then it's like when you really sit back and think about it, especially now that I am in a job, it's like, wow, you actually had it pretty good. you
Mm.
know and that's kind of like being in my position now with helping Peyton out a lot. Like I'm constantly with Peyton, Molly Simpson, Tegan Pasquale. I'm constantly like just breathing down their neck about enjoying the moments, right? Like quit beating yourself up on what place you got and whether you performed here or not. It's like that's not the stuff you're going to remember, I promise. Like yes, the end goal is to be the best in the sport that you can be, but it's not worth losing sleep over when you lose a race, whatever. There's always going to be another one. Work your ass off in between, so when you get there you know that you did everything you possibly can, because then your body knows what to do. You've trained for it. You are in the right headspace. You just go out and have fun, ride your bike, do what you know how to do. The work is done. Let the rest fall into place, and not, a lot of different. I'm like best friends with Lauren Reynolds, and her and I are two completely different approaches. She doesn't believe that she can be friends with her competitors. Besides me, she couldn't. Um, but that's her mindset, and it's like that works for her. And for me, that would have made me miserable. Like my best friends are in the sport, and I cannot wait to get to a race to see them. That doesn't mean I'm not going to shove them over a corner, but they're going to know that I still love them at the end of the day. Like what we do on the track is our job. You can love that person to your core off the track, and uh, I don't know. That's just me. Everybody's different. I don't think one way is better than the other. Um, but just for me personally, I would have never been able to succeed, I guess, had I just, been in my own little bubble and not interact with other people.
Yeah.
Because it's funny, like a lot of people, especially like these young girls that I've kind of taken under my wing, they're always talking to me about like, man, you're always talking about like how fun Lauren is and Lauren doing this. And I'm like, BMX Lauren and real life Lauren are two different people. I'm like, she's a good time, but she's strictly business when she gets to the race, And even as her best friend, we'll hardly talk at a national, but we'll talk for a few hours on Monday, And it's just like, that's how Lauren works. And I know that. And it's, that's what works for her. And, I am all for that because I want her to be the best that she can be. It's just everybody's different, I guess.
So Lauren's an interesting cat. She just seems to get faster and faster and more determined the older she gets. It's just
It's
interesting
crazy
to watch, isn't it?
Yeah, she got a fire that lit under her ass after she got dropped from the national team in, was it 2017? It was right
I
after the
think you're
Olympics,
right.
wasn't it? Yeah, I was
I
in
think
the
you're
car
right.
with her when the main guy at Australia Cycling called her and gave her the boot, and she's like, "All right, give me the boot, I'll show you." And it's been amazing to watch her progress. I mean, obviously, Sam and Elise have helped so much with that, and they all make a great team together. And but yeah, Lauren is feisty, and she's still got it in her tank. And I wouldn't be surprised if she's like, "Yeah, mate, I'm done," or she's in the gate in Paris. Neither one would surprise me.
Yeah.
But she's got a lot of love and a lot of passion for the sport.
She's got a lot of fans here in Australia too.
Yeah, it's hard not to love Lauren.
Yeah. What's your worst injury as a pro?
Holland 2017, and that also shifted a lot in my life. So I was winning everything prior to that, right? And I'm not gonna say I was winning because it was fair, right? This was when Elise was going through all the stuff that had happened to Sam, and so I know she wasn't training like Elise trains, But for me, I was finally winning, and I was just It was almost like it benefited me to finally kind of believe in myself that I could win. Because like I said, my entire career, even as an amateur, I was never one that won. And I went to the World Cup in Holland, and I was leading. I think it was first round. I was leading, and I remember I had Mariana in my moto, and somebody else that was quick, and it was windy, and I do not do good in wind. As soon as it's windy, my mind is screwed. Um, and most of my competitors knew that. Like, I was a whole different rider in the wind. But I was terrified of it because every injury I ever had came from the wind. And it was windy that day. And I remember, like, my last text I had sent to my mom, she was like, "Good luck," or whatever. And I was like, "Thanks, pray I don't die." That was the last text I had sent. And then I went up to the gate. Well, then she's watching online, and second straight, I jump, wind takes me, I eat shit like hard, and she said on the camera they show them like scoop me onto a stretcher, and then like that's it. So she's like, "You seriously jinxed yourself." And so I ended up I lacerated my liver and my spleen, and I was hospitalized in Holland for. I was in the hospital for a week, and then I couldn't travel for another week. Um, that was bad, and that shifted a lot in my mind. Tony always says that is what kind of changed, um, as he saw as a coach in me. Still to this day, like, yes, I believe him, but also like I remember for years I wasn't like I was thinking about that, but um, the older I got, I definitely got more and more scared of getting hurt, and I think that kind of happens to most athletes, unless you're Annalise, who's just an absolute animal. It seems to not affect her like it affects the rest of us. I'm sure it does, but I don't know, she's mentally one of the strongest people I've ever met. And so, and I'm not afraid to say it, I'm not very mentally strong. I try to be strong, obviously, with the things that have been thrown in my life, but um, with racing, it got to the point where I didn't want to hurt anymore, it sucks waking up in pain. Even that, I'm 28 years old and my back hurts daily, and it's just things that my mom and I went on a walk a couple weeks ago and we were downhill and my knees were freaking killing me. She's like, "You are 100 years old," and I'm like, "I feel like it," but it's the blessing with the sport, I guess.
So it's weird. I have to try and explain to people that BMX is almost two different sports. You've got your supercross and you've got your standard everyday BMX. And I think the supercross races, guys like yourself, are so unrewarded for the kind of the task at hand. You put your lives on the line quite literally, and
Yeah.
we've got a number of riders that are in wheelchairs now that possibly wouldn't be if it wasn't for 8 meter hills and supercross
Yeah.
style tracks. And the kind of injuries you face, it's like, how do you even get to a point where you can just do that every single day without thinking about it?
Well, that was kind of where I was at, like with the World Cup stuff. Is it was like, okay, say it's 20-mile-an-hour side winds, and if I go out and win, which is never won a World Cup, I raced how many of them, so it's very rare. If I win, I'm gonna make maybe 3 grand, and it's like I just don't see. I don't know. I didn't have it in my heart to be like, oh yeah, this is worth it. And
Mm.
that was kind of what shifted everything with me. And I'm an ABA kid through and through, so like I hate the 8 meter hill. I think it's way too big. I think a 5 meter hill is plenty big enough to, you know, I don't know. It just like takes away kind of the grassroots, I guess, of what BMX is. And like for the Olympics, like in Rio when we first went out for the test event, and the riders like were like, "We're not riding this track. Like this is ridiculous." And we made them change it, but it's like if you're a spectator, you're not going to know the difference between a 40-foot gap and a 20-foot gap. Us that are doing it know the difference. You know what I mean? And it's like I don't know. I feel like with the Olympic stuff, it's like they're adamant to show the crashes, and because that's what people want to see. But it's if you're a parent who has a 5-year-old and you want to put them in a Olympic sport, that's the last one you're going to pick. You know
Mm.
what I mean? And it's like, but that's not our sport. Yes, there are crashes, but that's not what makes BMX what it is. And I kind of feel like that's just my own opinion why it didn't boom like everybody thought it was going to boom when the Olympics were put in 2008. But it's like they did better in Tokyo as far as showing the crashes. Like they kind of just like showed it, but then like panned off and went to something else, which I thought was great.
Yeah.
But I mean, in Rio, it was like nonstop, just showing crashes after crashes after crashes. It's like, what the hell? That's not our sport.
um, how did you find motivation to keep your pro career going as long as you did?
Um, I just think it was love, passion for the sport, passion for the people in the sport, and really like my bike has always been my escape. It's always been like if I was having a bad day, if I was going through a breakup, if whatever it was like my bike was always there. I mean, I didn't get my driver's license till I was almost 18 because I rode my bike everywhere, which now that would never happen. I'm way too lazy for that. But I just think it was just the love for my bike, and I still have that love. Um, it's just different now, I guess. Um, but I always think about just how grateful and passionate I am about the sport of BMX and how much it gave me. I mean, look, I would have never met my wife had I not, from the sport. And that's amazing. She's from Australia and I'm from a small town in California. And it's like how we ended up meeting, is crazy, but it's like everything in life happens for a reason. And all my people in my life are 90% of them are from the sport of BMX. And that is just incredible.
Um, excuse me. If you hadn't gone on to be a pro BMX racer, what do you think you would have done?
I got no idea. I think about that actually a lot because I've always struggled really bad with school. Um, and so I think that's why I was always like good at BMX because it was like the one thing that I was decent at because school, it's always been really, really hard for me. Um, So I don't know. I don't know that college would have been the route that I took. Um, I really have no idea. I wanted to be a cop for many years, so I might have done that route. Now I would never, just because I've seen, what it's done to my family and how people view cops, and it's just not something I would be interested in now. But I don't know. That's a great question.
Um, what do you say to young up and coming riders looking to start a pro career?
Embrace it. I would say it goes by quicker than you think. Um, I would say work hard, throughout the week, because it's like it's this much of your life, like this Monday through Friday training sounds awful and it sounds like so much work, and but it's like it flies by, and you don't want to get to the end of your career and look back and be like, I should have worked harder, all those years. I'm fortunate that I haven't felt that way yet. I mean, I know that my mom asked me actually this a couple days ago. She's like, "Do you have any regrets?" And the only regret I think I have is not moving, like when everybody moved to San Diego to like be on the Supercross hill every day. Like I think that held me back, but there was a reason I didn't move, right? And it was because I am so close to my family, and I always felt for so many years that like I was kind of like the center ground for everybody, and it was important for me to be near my parents, really. So it's not so much that it's a regret, but I think I would have done a lot better on the Supercross scene had I been on the hill every day. I would go every couple months, but I think I could have benefited and been a lot better at Supercross had I made that commitment and that move. Um, so if I had a regret, it would be that. Um, but other than that, I just say, embrace it. It's a beautiful sport. Your bike can take you to amazing places, and believe in yourself and have fun while you're doing it.
Can you be a pro BMX racer and not race World Cups?
Uh, yeah, but it's hard. I mean, as it is right now, the USA National Series this year, there's 4 races that aren't on a Supercross hill.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So yes, but it's hard. Um, I don't know. I just look at like when I think like pro women BMX, like elite women, I think of, the Elise, the Bethany Shriver, the Lauren, the Laura Smulders, all these girls that are just Mariana, these girls that are just dominating no matter what track you put them on. Um, I don't know. I I want to say yes, but I really, the way the sport's going, no. And that's what was kind of hard for me, was like I was so overdoing Supercross. Um, so it was like, how am I going to be a top rider if I'm racing 4 nationals a year?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
pretty hard.
So there's not a lot of money in BMX for sponsorship. Is it possible to make a full-time career out of it for many women in the US?
Mm, I would say there was probably 3 of us that made a pretty good career, um, as far as like my generation goes.
Yeah.
Uh, it's it's pretty rare. I feel like I was one of the very fortunate ones. Um, I mean, like, I'm not gonna lie, I made a great living for many years, but that wasn't everybody didn't get that opportunity. Like I said, there was maybe 3, 4 pushing it. The guys maybe 5 or 6, maybe not even. Um, so I think if you work hard and you have a good, your social media is good, and you really, nowadays it's like people don't really care how you perform. They care what you're going to post on social media. Um, I hated that personally, but I'm constantly pushing like these younger girls that I've taken under my wing to just like, the sponsors are out there, but you need to up your social media game, and so I've been helping Molly Simpson out a lot, because that chick is rad. Like, she is so good on a bike. Her personality, she's awesome. but people don't see that side of Molly Simpson, right? And so I'm like, you got to show yourself on social media. Let people see who we see, and adore. And I mean, you're phenomenal on a bike. You're fast as shit. Like that stuff's there. But like, let's grow this, so these bigger sponsorships can come. And I mean, hopefully we can get more corporate sponsorships in the sport. I don't know. I hope the sport deserves so much more than it's getting. Is
Absolutely.
the best way to put it,
Yeah.
especially these elite riders.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not many other sports where you have to work as hard as we had to work or have to work um, to do what we actually do for this much reward, you
Mm.
know? Um, and it's amazing to me the people that just, they're not getting paid, they're paying their own way. And they love it so much and they show up time after time after time. And it's like, where's the funding? Like we need more help here,
Mm.
and like there's so many corporate sponsors that I want to see get involved. And I'm hopeful that that'll come again. Like, I was always a big Stumpy fan and a Donnie fan, and those guys had some pretty big deals. So I'm hoping we can get there again.
Yeah. So going on to the Olympics, how would you sum up your Olympic experience?
London was a shit show. I was about a deer in the headlights the entire time I was there. I don't even hardly remember it, honestly. Um, Rio was the best experience of my life. I had so much fun. The Olympics is something that's so special. Like nobody can prepare you for it. It's something you have to experience on your own to really grasp it. Um, but it's just amazing. It's such a cool thing to be a part of. And um, now looking back, I really like I see how cool it is. When you're in the moment, it's like, oh yeah, that's cool. But like, you kind of like your mind's on what you're supposed to be there for. But now looking back, it was like, man, that was an awesome experience, and something that I get to tell to my grandkids, and that's super cool. I'm very, very lucky and feel very fortunate to be a small fraction of the world that's got to experience that.
So it must be weird to get, I guess, pampered and looked after so well for that just one weekend or 1 week or 2 weeks, whatever it might be. Um, so it looks like, you travel as a team on a plane and you turn up to these apartments and you just got everything you need on tap, and you even get extra little bits and pieces, shoes and clothing and
You show up.
phones.
So in London, we didn't get to go through team processing, but in
All
Rio,
right.
we went through team processing in Houston, and it was basically like you get a piece of paper and had different checklists of like all the different places you had to go to, and that was so cool. Like that was one of the funnest days I've had. Like Elise and I, we were just, we'd go to each room and do these different checklists. And like one room, you're in a Nike room, right? And it's a fitting room, but when you go into the fitting room, it has your name lit up in the mirror. Like
All right.
your name is like in the mirror. It has all your sizes, and then if whatever doesn't fit, they come and replace it. And like you get to put on all the different outfits, whether it's the podium outfit, opening ceremonies, all this different stuff. So you're just so spoiled. And then another room is like you get actually tailored and fitted for like your Ralph Lauren outfits and stuff. And then one room was like a social media room where they like verified your accounts on Instagram and Facebook. And so it's just like you feel super cool, especially like as BMXers. Like, and that's something that I'm trying to uh, throw out there with USABMX and the headquarters, because we want to get elite teams out to the headquarters, because I mean that facility is insane, right? But I'm talking to them about embracing, like making these pros that come in feel like they're pampered from the moment they land, off the plane. That they, whether they go to a restaurant and it's like that restaurant, we work out a deal with them that there's happy hours, but once one drink is called like the Neat Kinman something, just make these riders feel like as cool as they actually are,
Yeah.
'cause
Yeah.
we don't really get that.
Yeah.
And so that's the goal, with Tulsa, is just bringing all these different elite teams in and them getting spoiled, really. Um, And so yeah, that back to the Olympics, that was basically how you feel the whole time. You know, you're completely spoiled. And then I'm not a McDonald's fan at all. Like it's pretty trash. McDonald's in Australia is actually pretty good. McDonald's in the US is trash. McDonald's at the Olympics is the best thing. Like I remember in London I went and I was super picky when I was young and I was like, oh, I'm gonna get McDonald's. It was after the race and I like went to pay and the lady's like, honey, you're at the Olympics, everything's free. I was like, what? Everything at McDonald's is free? It was like the most amazing feeling ever. But yeah, I don't know. The whole experience is rad.
um, what does it mean to you as an individual to say you're an Olympian?
I don't know. It's obviously an honor, first of all, to represent my country at the highest level in sport. But I've always been somebody that doesn't necessarily like to throw it out there. Because I've watched people's demeanors change, right? Like, first they wouldn't give me a time of day because I'm just Brooke Crain, right? But then somebody says, oh, like she went to the Olympics, and you see their entire demeanor change and how they treat you. And it's like, I didn't like that. I want you to like me for me, not because of a label, something that I was able to accomplish. You know what I mean? Um, so that's like, yes, it's an honor in a say, but I don't like to just be like, throw it out there.
Yeah, yeah. Um, obviously, you've competed for the USA numerous times. You probably don't even remember the number of times. It doesn't make you proud to compete for your own country,
Yeah.
or because BMX is very much an individual sport, but to be selected among an elite group to do something just for America, like, is there anything that compares to that?
Uh, no, I mean it's pretty rad. It's like it's one of those things where it's like when you actually really think back and look, and this is any country, right? Like you have all these people that fought for your rights and your freedom and to be able to put that jersey on to go and race your little kid bicycle around the world. Like it's much bigger than me. You know, it's all those people. And when you think about it that way and remember it that way, it becomes so much more special to put that jersey on every single time.
Yeah. Um, so I've got one more topic I really want to touch on, and that's women in BMX racing. And when I first started BMX, it was almost like women were treated as a novelty, and they called them powder puffs. I mean, it could get any worse than that, really. And today, you know, women are getting paid in BMX racing equal prize money, and it's very different. Like the depth of the field, it's just out of control. Like, you know, there could be 2 or 3 gates at a World Cup that might make the final. It's just crazy.
It's insane.
Um, and have you seen that over your career? Is the
Oh,
change is just out of
absolutely.
control? Do you think it's the Olympic?
Especially in
Sorry,
the
go ahead.
last especially in the last 5 years, I'd say. It is insane how deep the talent pool is. And this new generation, so the way I kind of look at it, right, is like we have these different generations and like the Ariel, the Jill Kittner, you know, all these girls, they set the bar prior to them. Like, let's go even further back, you know, like let's go Sherry Elliott and, you know, uh, Tara Lyons and all these like rad chicks, right? They were the OGs, right? And then you had the Kim Hayashi, the Ariel, all these people that came in and they set the bar even higher than that. Well, the next generation, it's like the Elise, me, you know, I don't even want to put Elise on that generation because I feel like she's still going this way. But let's say me, right? And it's like the goal is to try to step that even higher. Well, now this new talent pool, insane. The things that they're able to do on their bike is just like watching Zoe Clemens ride a bike and the manuals and different stuff she's doing. I'm like, it is mind blowing to me. Like they're so talented, um, and it's just amazing. And it's like you know Mariana, for instance, Mariana and Elise, those girls are still they're still just getting better. I'm like, how you guys are like you are already up here and now you're still getting better and I think they're getting better because this new generation is pushing them to continue to get better, you know? So it really is amazing to sit back and watch. Like I've said from the very first time I ever saw Bethany Shriver in Manchester, I'm like, that chick is the next Mariana. Like she is so rad on a bike. And I mean, look at what she did in the past year. She's amazing. So, and there's so many of them. Like you said, like there's literally 2 gates easily of girls that should be in the final at a World Cup. Easily. And it's like, you never know. Like I was messing around with friends at the Utah race during the Olympics, and we were like trying to like throw out who was going to make the final. We were all like all over the place, obviously, because of things that went on. But even then, it was like looking at the list of like, oh, who can actually get in the final? It was at least 16 riders.
Yeah.
Which is more like the men, right? The men have been that way for years. Where the girls, it's kind of always been, you knew who your top 8 were going to be, for the most part, as long as something didn't go wrong. Where the men, it was like, shit, there's probably 32 or more of them that could easily make the final, you know? Which made their racing so much more exciting, in my opinion. Where now it's like the girl racing is just insane to watch. I get nervous watching. Because like I'm a person that like, I'm just a fan of everybody. Like they are all rad. And like 90% of them, like I wanted to be like, you know, to this day, like if I got on the track with Ariel, I know she would show me up, you know, and it's just like, I think that's the beauty of our sport. Like, I'm not saying I was ever the best, because I don't personally think I was, but I like to believe that I was a very good bike rider, you know, and that was what helped me, because I always tried to ride like a guy, you know. For now, it's like you don't even have to say you ride like a guy. Like there's some badass chicks in our sport.
Oh
Like I
yeah.
want to ride like her, you know. And I think that's so cool for the younger generation to watch and to be able to admire these girls. And you know, I admire them even though they were my competitors for years. I genuinely like, I love watching a lot of them ride their bike.
So what do you think it is that sort of changed racing for women? Do you think it's the Olympics, or do you think there's more to it?
Yeah, I don't really know. I don't know. That's a great question. I just think that I genuinely think it started with these girls that started jumping, and then you know, like in my generation, it was always like Elise and Mariana battling, and both those girls could, you know, I feel like naturally riding came a lot easier to Mariana than it did to Elise, but Elise worked her ass off to get to that level that she's at now. You know, if you remember OG Elise, like she was crashing all the time, and she always got out of these deathly crashes that we were like, how?
Say hello. Oh, you can't see her. I've
No,
got my back.
hi, I
Come
can't see you.
close.
You're like in a tree. Oh, hi there. How are you?
She can't hear you.
Um, yeah, so like I feel like those girls really progress the sport, just, you know, wanting to get up there and battle with them. And I don't know. I really don't know where this new generation came from, because they are a different breed, I'm telling you.
Do you think it might change, say, sponsorship and awareness for the future generation?
I would like to hope so. Yeah. I think the bigger the talent pool, or the deeper the pool, the more exciting the racing, um, which leads to, you know, people coming in and wanting to support, is obviously the idea and the hope. Um, so yeah, I would love to see the sport just continue to grow and these girls get what they actually deserve. Same with the guys. Like a lot of guys aren't getting what they deserve.
Yeah.
And you know, I'd love to see that change.
So
I don't
you would
know.
have known. Go ahead.
I was just saying, I just don't know what it's going to take.
Yeah, you would have noticed the change in USABMX National Series, um, kind of with everyone really focused on Olympic qualifying and World Cups, and it's sort of taken away a little bit from the USA National Series. Do you expect that to change? I've noticed a few more Australians are looking to sort of head over to the
Uh,
USA.
yeah, I hear that. So just like in the office and stuff, obviously I'm working with like all the USABMX guys, and We've been told a lot of international riders are coming over just for the next few races, especially that most of them are on a Supercross hill. The next one being in Houston in like 2 weeks, I think, or next week. So yeah, that's super exciting. I think that obviously makes for great racing. And I think, look, the more that you're racing your bike, the better you're going to be. So, if you're going in every weekend, like a lot of these guys, like let's say the Netherlands, for instance, like those guys' season is typically pretty short. It's like just the World Cup season, right? We're like the USA guys, I mean, we're going from January to November and then doing everything in between. So it's like we don't have that break, which I think there is a benefit and there's not. Like, so those guys are able to get stronger and take the time to like build their engine, right? Where us, it's like we're just trying to maintain because we're racing all year long. So there's not really that window to actually get stronger, but we're racing every weekend. So we're getting that race experience. Not that they don't have the experience, but the more you're racing every weekend, the better you're going to be going into the next race.
Yeah.
So I think this will be really cool. And it's like, that's kind of the fun of like the Olympics being over and like, there being another 4 years. It's like you get so much more exciting racing in between. You get the Olympic style racing, but, on a random national in March.
So you spent a little bit of time over at the new HQ at Tulsa. It looks pretty cool with the Hall of Fame and the track there. Can you sort of take us through what's there?
Yeah, it's rad. Like it's something that you're just like, holy cow, this is big when you get there. The track is insane. The new track operator's very cool guy. He just moved there from Kansas, and we get to work together. And he's got little kids that race, and he races himself. And so there's literally everything you can think of as far as like timing system. The like VIP room will have like a projector screen that like their times will go to for like video review. All of that will be in place. There's a spot for like sprints that the timing is already in, like so that you don't have to set anything up. The gym, we just got word that we got the green light to go ahead and order the gym. So myself and Alec Bob and I actually reached out to Sam and Elise to help me with that. And then like Tony D, I'm not sure if I'm sure you've heard of him.
He's been in the industry for quite a while.
Oh, yeah, he's rad. And then Shane Fernandez, we kind of all like, put thoughts together. And so the gym is going to be an elite training gym. So that is the first elite camp. The U.S. team is coming in May. So the idea is to get the gym put in by then. So yeah, and then like there's an office area, and then like there's different rooms around the main office area. There's a classroom downstairs for us foundation guys to have kids come in and teach them the STEM program and different stuff like that. And I mean, it obviously the Hall of Fame, which has everything you can think of in there. There's going to be showers. I mean, it's a world-class facility. It's really rad. I was on the top of the Supercross hill the other day, and there was along like the top of the structure or whatever, there was heaters built in.
Oh, right.
I was like, holy cow, this thing is insane. But yeah, they did an amazing job, and it's a really cool facility. And I'm just super excited for different teams to come in and be able to train there and have access to everything they need, and everything's already set up for them. And hopefully, like I said, we can work out some stuff with local restaurants and get these guys pampered.
So that track won't be used for the Grands, will it? It'll just be used for some of the national events?
Yep. So they'll have their own events there, one of them being the national. And yeah, just a ton of different events throughout the year as we, get settled and get going. But the Grands will always be at the Expo Center just because of size, and they have a really good deal with the Expo Center, which they've, been partners for years. And obviously it's freezing that time of year. So you want to be indoor.
Oh, that's right, because the HQ track is exposed around the outsides, isn't it?
Yeah. But you know what's awesome is like it was super windy when we had our grand opening, like really, really windy. And when you're on the track, you can't feel it. The only place you can feel it is the second corner. But everywhere else, like it's really protected. It was built very, very smart.
Okay, awesome. I don't really have any more questions for you. I went a whole lot longer than I expected. Most of my
You're fine.
interviews probably only last about half an hour.
No, you're fine.
Actually, no, I do have to ask you. Rachel's an Aussie, so surely you've learnt some Australianisms over your
Yeah.
time. What's your favourite Aussie saying?
Uh, well, I'm always getting after her because I'm like, you guys are so lazy. Like chalky bicky, right? Like, why wouldn't you just say chocolate biscuit? I don't understand. And she's like, because it's a chalky bicky. And so there's just like different things that I'm just like, or I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on here, but one day she, and you can bleep this out if you need to or whatever, but she came home and asked her something and she's like, I didn't come here to spiders. I was like, what? What do you mean? She's like, it's a saying. I'm like, that's not a saying. Like, I don't know. I don't, please never say that again. I don't understand what you're saying. So that one always gets me because I'm just like, what? That makes no sense. I would hope you wouldn't want to do that. Like, but yeah. So she's character. I'm constantly I don't hear her accent anymore. Just I'm used to it, I guess. But yeah, a lot of people around us do, and she's the battalion chief of her academy, and
All right.
uh, she's like, they probably only picked me because of my accent, and I'm like, honestly, that would probably be the last reason they would pick you because nobody understands what you're saying because you're constantly having to like yell at people and whatever else. But um, yeah, she's God love her, she's a good soul.
When you go to a restaurant, who orders the food?
Me, oh God,
Because I've been to restaurants, even just like I don't know, a takeaway joint, and ask for a milkshake, and people listen for the accent first. They don't listen to what you're saying, so it takes a couple of times before you actually
yeah.
get your order right.
Anytime fast food restaurant, I have to order everywhere we go. Even if she's driving in like a fast food place, I have to order because there's been times where she asks for a water and they're like, a what? She's like, a water. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, it's
um,
not that hard.
all right, I better cut it off here. I'm sure that you've got a lot of work to do, and trying to get into the new job. So good luck with all of that.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. Maybe I need to talk to Rachel in the future.
Yeah,
Is she
actually,
still racing?
not really. No, she's just been doing a lot, with the fire stuff, and if she can make it to a race to hang out and maybe ride around, she will. But yeah, she's kind of on the new path in life, and
Yeah.
she's just, doing what Rachel does.
Thanks a lot, Brooke.
All right, Shane, take care. It was good to
You
talk to
too.
you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye. So I got a friend who's a big Brooke Crain fan. Can you say hello to Glenn for me?
Hello, Glenn. How are you?